Welcome to the January 13 East Whiteland Township Board of Supervisors meeting. I am Scott Lambert, and I'm joined by Vice Chair Rich Orlow and Sue Drummond, and the entire East Whiteland Township staff, including our Township Manager, John Nagel. If anyone will be corresponding, any residents will be corresponding in, just so you know, you'll be handled by Donna Weichert. At this time, I would like to call the meeting to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
I think my second grade class did a better job of that than we did.
I think we need a conductor.
Probably.
Okay.
And Chris, you were right. During the reorg meeting, we need to work on that a little bit.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I would like to begin with the board briefings. An executive session was held today on January 13th at 5 o'clock, where we discussed legal, real estate, and personnel issues. On item 2B, we'd like to have a property maintenance code update of recent activity led by Ted Locker.
Yes, good evening. So yesterday I was in district court with a couple of property owners. Judge basically gave two property owners on Lancaster Avenue and one on Prospect Avenue 30 days to get cleaned up the properties that we noticed them on. Also, we are filing liens on one property that we had cleaned up. We had hired a contractor to go in and clean up, and that lien has been filed on that one, and they're working on collecting the fines on another that the legal team is working on. And that is the majority of it for this month.
Okay, thanks, Ted. Those are issues you've been working on for some time, right? So this may be the accumulation of those efforts over a period of time?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thanks for your efforts on that.
You're welcome.
One brief item I'd like just to add out there, because I know that people will be asking about, is that I just want to let you know that we continue to proceed with the bid process for the Backton Hill Park project for anyone out there interested. We have no public hearings this evening, so we'll move into item number 4 with board motions and resolutions. And I think John Nagel can introduce the Aero Engineering for the Municipal Campus Master Plan.
Yes, thanks, Scott. The next 3 items are all interrelated. The staff continues to work doing due diligence on development of a municipal campus master plan. We already have a public works garage and a fire station. We're looking to tie those buildings together along with possibly building a new police station, as well as renovating the existing administration building. So to move the ball further, we have proposals that we've received from consultants that we continue to use in our due diligence. The first being Arrow, and that would be for engineering services for preparing land development plans for that municipal campus master plan. We have Daryl Becker here from Arrow to give you a summary of what that all entails. What I did put on the agenda are the main components of the proposal, and Daryl can go through those in summary form. I did list the total amount of the proposal at the amount listed at $86,630. So with that, I'd ask Daryl to give the board and the public a summary of what that proposal entails.
Thank you, John. Yeah, as John mentioned, we submitted a proposal back in early December for the preparation of the land development plans for the master campus plan. That would include all grading, stormwater design, roadway design, et cetera, for the new police building. It would also include sedimentation and erosion control facilities and permitting, as well as the NPDES permit that gets reviewed by the Conservation District and DEP. In addition to that, we would be preparing construction plans and specifications to submit to the architects Bernardin when they are ready to go out to bid for the entire package. As you may recall, we did get authorization from the board, I believe in December or November, to do the infiltration testing for the stormwater facilities. We did get that completed, so we have that already in the works. We've also had the survey completed of the site, which Bernardin has been using, and land concepts for the sketch planning. As part of the land development plans, land concepts will be providing us with some information required by the land development process, and that would be the landscape plan. So we're looking to team with them to provide a landscaping plan. We'll also be working closely with Bernardin and land concepts as the process moves forward to make sure that we include all the elements of the police building and other improvements in the land development plan. So with that being said, there are a couple items that are not included in our proposal, just so you're aware of those. Any construction related work is not included. We would provide a proposal at that time. As the design engineer, we will have to inspect the stormwater facilities to sign off on the NPDES termination document. So that would come sometime in probably 2022 or later. So at that time, we would provide services related to construction. And that's all I have to report at this time. Oh, we do expect to complete the majority of this work within 12 weeks of kind of receiving a final layout by Bernardin of the improvements, the access drive, the parking, the building, and so forth. So we'd like to try and move that forward so we can get the NPDES permit submitted to DEP. That can take close to 9 months to get approval. So that's kind of the schedule we're looking at. And again, we'll work closely with John Meadows and land concepts as we move forward.
Let me just add in there, if I may. Collectively, these three different consultants will be working through probably most of this year, and some of these work is going to spill over into 2022 as well. I think one of the things that motivated us to put this on the agenda early in the year was the environmental work that Daryl referred to. And he mentioned that, especially in this day and age with the pandemic and what's going on in the DEP offices, I don't know, Daryl, if you can explain that a little bit more in detail of what the current.
Yeah, most of DEP personnel are working from home, so it's a little bit more cumbersome to submit documents to DEP for review. It is taking them a bit longer to get reviews turned around, but in general, the NPDES permit does take close to 9 months for approval in a non-pandemic situation. So we're hoping that we can get that turned around in about 9 months anyway, as things lighten up with the pandemic. Fingers crossed. So it will take some time.
So with that, we would be asking for the board to approve the proposal from Arrow as stated on the agenda.
Yeah, I just have one question.
Sure.
You also exclude wetlands mitigation services. There's no reason to believe there's any wetlands up on that hill, is there?
Correct. That's correct, Rich. We don't anticipate any wetlands. We didn't find any at the low points where we did our infiltration testing. So it's a general services excluded comment that we make, or item that we put in there.
Okay. As a general rule, when you get to this takes us up to permitting.
Yeah, we would hope to have all the permits necessary, the NPDS, the ENS control, at completion of hopefully this year or early in 2022. It would also get us land development approval from the township and the county.
Yeah, if we give it.
Correct.
And the construction part of from the breaking ground forward, construction services, you think it'll add about 50% to the bottom line?
I don't expect our part to be that intensive. Again,
Okay, good.
it's a matter of periodic inspection of these stormwater facilities in order for us to close out the NPDS permit. If there's other
Okay.
Inspections that the township would like us to do, we can certainly provide that service.
Okay, so it shouldn't be that high. All right, good.
I wouldn't think so, no.
Okay. That's all I have.
No questions.
Sue, do you have any questions?
Nope.
Okay. Then at this point in time, Sue, why don't you lead off with the, I'd like to make, I need a motion regarding 4A.
I make a motion to approve the proposal from Arrow for engineering services for the land development plans for the campus master plan in the amount of $86,630.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed.
Thank you.
Thank you as well.
Thank you, Darrell.
The second proposal, I think Darrell did a nice job of summarizing that for us, but in order to, since we have both Paul Segre and John Meadows here tonight, they can add some detail to the summary that Darrell gave on the first piece to this. So there is a collaborative effort. We have all three groups working very collaboratively together. So Paul or John, if you want to take it from here.
Very good, John. Thank you, and thank you to the board. Bernardin remains grateful for the opportunity to continue to work with the township and the community on this campus master plan. I think that, as John mentioned, the buildings that we've designed on the campus with the fire station and the public works building have positively improved the campus, and we're confident the campus landscape will continue to improve with the work that the entire team plans. So the overarching goal of the new buildings and landscapes is to provide safe and efficient delivery of public safety services, updated accommodations for the township administration, and improved public amenities. Our overarching goals are to provide safe and efficient delivery of those services. Our proposal outlines the services that we're proposing to further develop each of those aspects of the project. Our proposal includes the architecture, the interior design, structural engineering, mechanical, plumbing, electrical engineering, fire protection engineering services, as well as cost estimating services that we feel are important at certain stages of the project. Again, all of those services are included in the proposal that we presented to the township. The civil engineering and landscape architectural services, as noted, are provided by Arrow and Land Concepts, respectively. Our services for this proposal include the development of the police station design, construction documentation associated with the police station, and the ultimate bidding and construction contract administration of the police station. So we have included bidding services as well as construction contract administration services in that proposal before you. We've also included schematic design. So that's the early stage of design for the existing administration building in order to communicate the exterior alterations of that building that will contribute to the sort of architectural harmonization of the campus. So that we want to make sure that the language of all the buildings on the campus and all the spaces on the campus read as one campus. I'd also like to note that the police station services that we've included in the proposal also assumes that we are incorporating the indoor firing range. So I just want to make a point that that is included in that proposal. And you know, we've spoke about the indoor firing range previously. We understand the campus master plan will be implemented in 2 distinct construction phases, so that the phase 1, of course, will be the police station, improved signage, site wayfinding, and landscape improvements that are being provided by Landscape Concepts and Arrow. That phase is currently anticipated to be planned for active construction in 2022, as is being mentioned. And then phase 2 of the campus improvements, namely modifications and improvements to the current municipal building would follow that at some sensible time. So I believe, John, that touches on all the things that our proposal includes in terms of the consulting services and the specific focus on the building and landscape aspects.
Yeah, it does, Paul. Thank you for that. I do want to clarify something though, and maybe ask a question. We have the prime components of the proposal valued at almost $360,000. You also did disclose some optional services. Do we have to decide on any of those this evening, or can we defer those to sometime later this year?
Well, essentially the services that we did outline as the optional services are focused on LEED and sort of the environmentally responsible design components. In order to properly design for them and account for them, it's important that in the next stage of building design, and at the beginning of that actually, so usually at the beginning of design development, we would begin those services. You know, we would begin to have the charrette, if you will, to talk about what strategies we wanted to achieve. And then of course, there are a number of strategies that require a good amount of engineering. And so, yes, I think that those aspects of the optional services, we would want to begin to explore those early on, which would obviously be greater than the value that's being presented for approval tonight. However, because the bidding and construction contract administration services are not likely to occur in 2021, or certainly construction wouldn't, the value of those services might fall under the value that is being recommended this evening.
I guess I would suggest as a practical solution, at least for tonight, is that we revisit these optional financial commitments, maybe in 90 days, something like that, or at some reasonable time in the near future, so we don't hold up those elements of this project, but we also give ourselves some time to identify which ones we definitely need to do out of the gate and some that we may need to give further consideration.
Yeah, and John, I'd like to make clear that, you know, as a design team and effort, you know, it's our intention to bring a level of responsibility as it relates to environmental design to the building design just out of the gate. It's things like designing gray water systems, designing for solar, and that is, you know, the connections and so forth. And then identifying all those strategies that are going to help us to get LEED accredited, or LEED certified, that add cost.
Okay. So if it's okay, what I would suggest that the board consider is approving the proposal valued at $359,600, and then staff will have discussions with the firms involved and come back to the board with any additional financial commitments that we need to make as a part of this project.
Paul, I have one question on the 8 optional services that you've outlined here. Traditionally, are they utilized as an aggregate?
Yeah, so I think that of the 8, it might be determined early on that, there are certain strategies that, perhaps you felt comfortable with a LEED certified level or a LEED silver level, and it wasn't necessary to actively go after a geothermal system, for instance, or, perhaps there was no real interest in getting into a gray water system for a public building. And of course, we wouldn't have to expend design energy on those particular services. I think where we would want to get value early on is in the optional services number 1, which is a sustainability and LEED consulting. It might help to take that to a level where we can determine whether or not there's a particular level or strategy for third-party validation that we want to make a commitment to. And then all of these other things would fall into place in terms of the need for them. But at this moment, I couldn't tell you whether we would have to do that.
Okay.
I would like to have some meetings with us to go over your plans, because I don't know what the advantage of getting an actual LEED certification is if we just do the environmentally appropriate things. What does the certification do for us? Well, that's a question to ask later.
Yeah.
And I don't think we need to approve anything extra tonight. This is going to go into 2 years worth of work. So,
Yes.
Paul, I'm curious, are either of the other 2 buildings you're involved with been approved with the LEED?
Yes, I think the fire station was LEED certified at the silver or gold level.
Yes, it was. And I know that if we do LEED on this, it was very late and we had to make a lot of phone calls to get it finished. So if we do LEED on this, I'm going to want to withhold money until it's finished to make sure that it gets done timely and when we want it to get done. And I thought we were leaning against the indoor firing range. Is this is an on-site indoor firing range?
Rich, the police made quite a case for why it's beneficial to them to do it. I don't know if Chris wants to address that now, but apparently there's quite a bit of time and cost to sending people to Coatesville all the time for this.
True.
Chris,
I thought there was another location we might be able to put it on site. But I don't know.
I don't know of another location on site where we were talking about putting it, but the small temporary one that we have that we use in an emergency is the one that we get so many complaints about, and it's not a range and it's not a formidable building. So it's really just for having to qualify someone to get them on the street, or if you have a problem with a gun and you need to get out and fire it, to make sure that it's okay. Mm-hmm. To Sue's point, it does turn out, especially with the pandemic, we were only allowed to send a few people down at a time and eat to Coatesville, and it's a half hour each way. So we're paying them overtime. And then when they get there, they have to only spend a certain amount of time with a certain amount of people. And then you have to have a range instructor there from us each time. So you're paying them each time. And I mean, you're paying for gas, cars, and by the time we're done, it would be so much easier to have it. And I think that's, to her, that's what we were discussing, why we wanted to put it back in And ultimately, in probably 10 years, it would pay for itself. That's what we're looking at.
It effectively, it would effectively be underground, the same plane as the lower level, the garage.
That's
Yes,
All right. That's
on the
where it
other
was-
side of the building, but yes, correct.
Right. That's where it was first shown.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we investigated considering putting it in the basement of the Public Works garage, but I believe that due diligence found that it was not going to work in that. I wasn't part of the due diligence. I just recall us investigating that and not coming up with a positive outcome.
Right.
Yeah, that was correct. I'm sorry, John. That is what was the on-site one. And yes, we did put it out of our mind because we talked to people about it and they said it would cost more to retrofit that. And then you would be within the parameters of that building than just starting one from anew and making sure that you had all the proper.
All right. All right. Okay.
Is this, just for clarity and for transparency, is this range for short and long guns or just short guns?
Well, if we could get it qualified for long guns, we wanted to use long guns there. It may not necessarily have to be like to qualify on a 50-yard or 100-yard range. You can change that by just making the target size smaller. So there are some things you can do so that we can qualify with rifle and small arms there.
John, just in terms of the exploration that we've done, the accommodation of a 25-yard is more realistic. In fact, it can be accommodated. Anything beyond that is difficult.
Any chance we could offer these to the close by police departments so they don't have to go to Coatesville and maybe they can pay us for it?
Yeah, good point.
We discussed that in the early going, and there are insurance issues that come up with that. So if we want to discuss that later, that's certainly something that we could discuss.
Yeah, let's see what the insurance company lets us do, because why not? If we're gonna have it, I'm sure other people have the same problem.
Yeah.
Well, they do, and unfortunately, if just the fact that we can't find someone else to use their range kind of is an indicator that people are getting away from lending their range.
Okay,
But it's not necessarily undoable.
well, we'll check into it. Okay, just a thought.
Okay.
Paul,
Okay.
Paul, what does putting this range in, what do you have to eliminate in the current plans to accommodate this range?
Well, actually, the current plans where it's located actually takes advantage of a retaining wall that we were showing when we last presented the building. Because of the length of that retaining wall, we've actually thought that the firing range itself would basically become a retaining element. So it's located on the south side of the police station, accessed from a separate entrance that is, again, kind of engaged as part of that retaining wall. And then it extends from the entrance back into and towards the parking. So it actually took advantage of the site features and the retaining wall that we had already planned to make it work.
So we don't have to give up anything. We just add it in.
That's correct.
Okay.
And we have a couple questions from our public. We have Martin Lutz wrote in and would like to know if will the indoor-outdoor firing range at Mill Lane and 401 be eliminated once the new indoor firing range becomes operational?
Yes.
Yes.
I think so.
To answer that, yes.
And then I believe we have a question from a resident, and I ask that the residents identify themselves once they are on. So I know it's Barbara Ann, but still, could you identify yourself, please? Barbara Ann?
Thank you, Donna.
Sure.
Happy New Year, everybody. This is Barbara Ann Thav, Broadleaf Trail. I also currently chair Parks and Rec as a volunteer. I just wanted to reiterate Chief's comment about and Marty's write-in question about the current temporary firing range. We do hear comments from residents about that being concerning, and especially during, because of its closeness to Mill Lane, Ecology Park, and the potential connection we're going to make there. I have just a couple of questions and a comment or two, but I'm wondering just how parking for the trail will be impacted during the construction phase. And perhaps there aren't answers to that now, but that is something that we are going to want to have a good understanding about, since we have significant parking for the Chester Valley Trail at the current facility. That's my first question or comment. The other comment I wanted to make, I raised this last time you presented, which is to say, if there are going to be optional services and there is design work, it would be lovely to include sort of signage look and feel that's happening in the new campus that we could use in other locations around the township, such as at parks. So if we could think about that and consider, design costs associated with that, that would be awesome. And then I am kind of curious, because I've been reading a lot about this, in design world these days, about a lot of things that can be done now for improved airflow, considering we've been in the middle of a pandemic. So I'd be curious to know about that just personally, especially as I'll be, hopefully down the road in person in a conference room over there. Once this COVID pandemic eases up. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then the last comment I wanted to make, just to go to John's point about being transparent, could you just remind us all how many vendors were vetted before the selection of the architect and the landscape architect, just for all of us? So that's a multi-point question. I can stay unmuted if you like to go over those again. Thank you.
Scott, how do you want to proceed with this?
If you want to lead off, go ahead.
I'll start with the most recent and try to work backwards. These are professional services. They're not required to be bid. We have engaged Arrow for at least 5 or 6 years that I've been here, but they were selected well before my time. And they've proven to do, let me just back up for a second. Under professional services, we're not obligated to bid that work. Staff recommend to the board that we use the consultants that we've been using on these projects from the beginning. Arrow and Bernardin were used on the Public Works project to some degree. They were used on the fire station. They're a known entity. We know their work. We're not required to competitively bid those. There would be in our opinion, a very large learning curve for a new engineering firm or a new architectural firm to come in and take a look at what we have to work with here. And so we're very confident in the work that all the firms can do. And that's the reason we went with recommending the firms that are before you this evening. As far as airflow, I share, it's a personal vision of mine to make sure, especially after we've been through this pandemic, the folks in the office will tell you that our health and safety is of utmost importance to me and the board and the staff. So we have worked, and knock wood, been very successful in our results during the pandemic. So we haven't had the type of health problems that some other organizations have. And the board's been very supportive of keeping the building virtually closed through most of this, but we continue to work diligently on that. Some of the other things I'm going to need some help with. I think I didn't take as good of notes on the first couple that Barbara Ann presented. So
Parking was the area. Paul, you can maybe comment on that disruption of parking up on the near the Chester Valley Trail.
Well, I think that a majority of the parking will be preserved and not impacted. You know, there certainly is going to be a point where we have to create our new access. We have two points of access into the site, into both the public lot as well as into the secure drive and parking for the police. But those two items could be, could be controlled in terms of how and where we fence those areas off. So will there be lost parking? There's a chance that there would be maybe 4 to 6 spaces impacted.
And Paul, that's good to know, but I was specifically asking during construction, and if there's not an answer, I understand, because there's a lot of planning that needs to be done. I would just suggest, having a really good look during all times of the day and weekends, because, there'll need to be probably a solution put in place for that for folks.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
think construction laydown would occur on the site itself and not impact parking. And probably accommodations for construction vehicles as well could be accommodated in that manner.
And there is another site that's being looked at this point in time that could possibly catch some overflow. So we'll keep you appraised of that.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
contingent on these proposals being approved tonight, I would anticipate we're going to have more public engaged meetings on this topic. Sue had referenced, with the architects and the design teams to come up with what this could potentially look like. So we do want to get feedback from the public on this important project.
Okay, thank you.
One more. I have one more question. I'm sure this is a mistake. Say this proposal only includes those services that we understand you would like to have completed in 2021. The proposal takes you through construction administration. Clearly, we're not going to be in construction in 2021.
That's
Right.
correct.
So I'm sure that was just
Where were you
the
reading?
design.
I'm
Yeah, I
sorry.
thought this was going well into 22.
Oh, it
Did
will.
it not say that in the proposal?
Okay, so Rich, I'm not sure where you read that, but this says in the first paragraph, under project understanding, this phase is currently planned for active construction in the year 2022.
Right. Page 2, 6 or 7. Page 2, first paragraph, third line from the bottom of that paragraph.
Okay, so
There was a typo.
right. No. So what that it may be unclear. Let me provide clarity relative to what was meant there. That was specifically related to those services that we anticipate for the existing municipal building only. So in other words, we believe that we should do schematic design or conceptual design for what the exterior will look like and a conceptual plan for how the administration would fill out that building when the police are out. And those are the only services that we would anticipate needing to be completed in 2021.
For the existing administration building. Okay.
That's correct.
Yeah, part of the reason for pushing this is, and I've been pushing Bernardin on this pretty actively. We have an HVAC system, and I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but it's on its last leg. And so it's really 10 pounds in a 5-pound space. And we really need to get in front of this so that we don't end up with a failed HVAC system sometime in the next 12 to 18 months. So we've already had some preliminary discussions on what that could look like, but Paul and his team will have to take a look at it even closer.
So this is the beginning I call the cartoon stages of the administration building also.
I agree with you,
Right.
but I am
Yeah,
not
okay.
a professional in this
Right.
field.
Okay. And you say, are you looking at changing the exterior of the administration building in your initial thoughts? You're not looking at skinning it, are you?
I think that we're looking at ways that we might be able to improve the envelope to perform better. So that could include insulation improvements. It could include changes to the roof. But I think that there are certain gestures that we can do architecturally that will help tie that building into the campus aesthetic, if you will.
You're not thinking of expanding the building footprint, are you?
No, not at all.
Okay.
That is
Good.
not at all.
Good.
intended.
Okay. All right, just making sure.
There'll be plenty of room once the police station is occupied.
More than enough. Yeah.
That is
Right.
Okay. I don't have any other
We have
questions.
some capacity over in the Public Works garage that we haven't even explored yet.
Okay. Any other further questions, comments? Don, anything from the public?
No, there is not.
Okay. Okay, then, Rich, I guess you would be up to entertain a motion on item 4B.
Okay. All right, I'll make a motion to approve the proposal from Bernard and dated January 5th, 2021 for the described construction and design services.
I'll add not to exceed $359,600.
Well, there's always change orders, but
We'll come back if necessary.
right, yeah, that's right.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
And if I may, Scott, batting third is Rick Collier from Land Concepts. Rick, if you could tie this together from your perspective, I think you've heard 2/3 of or more of what the work that's going to need to be done in the next year or so. Just describe in a summary form what your firm will be looking to do with its proposal.
Good evening. Happy to do that. Thank you for asking us to participate in the project as well as this evening. It's nice to be third in line because a lot of the material has been covered already. I'll start off by saying when asked about the experience that we've had and how we are a member of this team, we have been doing landscape reviews for the township for, I think, the last 2 or 3 years. We work closely with members of your staff. So we're already on board working with you on landscape challenges throughout your community. And Land Concepts has also worked with John Nagel and Ted Locker in other municipalities doing landscape planning, master planning, and design work. So they know our work and have known our work for, I don't know, probably 15 years or maybe more, I hate to admit. But anyway, so we're not a newcomer totally to the team. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of that. And also we were brought onto the team over a year ago to look at some of the site issues, the landscape issues, and the overall master planning of the campus. Because we wanted to be able to tie the buildings together, not just architecturally, but bring the entire campus together into a uniform whole so that it had a consistent appearance, it had consistent landscape architecture, signage, etc. And we participated in the meetings with you on the concept plans. You may not recognize me because I don't have a mask on, but this is what I really look like. Anyway, we participated in that and helped to develop the concept that we're moving forward with. So our proposal is really focused on 4 areas. It's landscape architecture, lighting, signage, and grading to some extent as it relates to landscape architecture. So in terms of landscape, very often landscape is often thought of at the end of a project. It's really ideal to have landscape architecture dealt with early on so that we can think about everything from the outside of the building wall. Obviously, Bernardin and their helpers with mechanical and electrical, et cetera, deal with the building appearance, its exterior as well as the interior. We cover from the building wall out. And as we explained in our master plan concepts, we want to be able to tie all the features, not just the buildings, but the walkways, the environmental area that's on the right as you come in the main drive. So we'll be looking at landscape, not just from the point of view of plant material, although we'll be very conscious of appearance, seasonal interest, as well as complementary landscape to the buildings and throughout the campus. So that will be focusing on the plant material. And we are very sustainable. We like to propose landscape materials that are low maintenance, low water requirements, et cetera. So that covers the plant material. It's a combination of trees, shrubs, as well as ground covers as necessary. And it'll probably we'll have recommendations for the administration building entrance as well as the new police center. As far as lighting is concerned, that's pretty obvious. That's usually part of a landscape plan. We'll work with lighting, a consultant to propose appropriate fixtures and the proper amount of illumination so that it is safe and meets the requirements. And we'll prepare that lighting plan along with the landscape plan, which becomes part of the land development set that Arrow is preparing. As you know, all of your land development plans have that component in it, and those are the type of things that we review for you. So you know the kind of input that we're going to provide from what we've done for you there. And then signage. The signage coming into the campus is all different, and we want to have a uniform look. It ought to be attractive. We're hopeful that it can be model signage that you may want to carry elsewhere in the township so that you have a coherent look, not just on this campus, but in other parts of the township, but certainly part of this campus. Some of this landscape is going to include, I suspect, some hardscape. We've got probably entrance plazas. We have the gathering area that we talked about during the concept that we have to work with. And so we're going to deal with the hardscape. It could be certain areas of the entrance drive that you come in that have a change in paving pattern just because you're at key points in the procession up the driveway. These are things that we'll be working out. We've talked about conceptually, but haven't done the design or any of the documentation for that. And then the last area is really reviewing and assisting as necessary with the grading plan, particularly as it relates to landscape architecture. A case in point would be, we suspect there's going to need to be some retaining walls to access the police station. And we want to work with Bernardin to make sure that we treat them architecturally so that they're attractive and not in your face, but blend into the land and blend into the landscape. That there's an area where if we're looking at grading, we might be able to refine that grading to make the landscape appearance of it more attractive in the campus. So those are the four main areas that we will be dealing with. The materials that we prepare will be usable as part of the bid package when it comes time for construction bidding. To be able to take the landscape plan and be able to get that costed out from a construction point of view, although we can provide an estimate of that when we get to that point. So John, you asked for me to do it in summary. That's the summary. If there are any questions, of course, I'm happy to answer those, and I'll leave it there.
Rick, if I can just add that in your landscape plan, it will also include the review of environmentally sensitive roof, correct?
Yes, we'll provide input on that. In fact, I was looking at plants for a green roof today. We'll be looking at that. And I will also say that we are strong advocates of using native material. There may not everyone may not share that passion, but it's much better for the environment. It's more sustainable. It often survives better. And wherever we can use native materials that are suitable to our area, that's what we will use. But certainly where we're needed on plant material, hardscape, other finishes, we're happy to provide input to Bernardin and to Arrow as necessary.
Any questions, Rich or Sue?
No, none. Looks good.
Well, we really appreciate I know you're going to vote on this, but we really appreciate the opportunity to be part of this great team and to work on this project. So thank you.
Thanks, Red. Donna, anything from the public?
So I'm not sure, but Deb Mogul had her hand up, but I think she put it back down. Deb, do you have a comment?
No, actually, he answered my question.
Okay.
I appreciate the emphasis on native species. I think that's really important, especially with our problems with infestations with lanternflies, because of all of the tree of life trees we have around here. So thank you.
Yeah, the trail is lined with ailanthus, which is a total magnet for them. So getting rid of some ailanthus would be a big help.
Ah,
Okay. All right. Without any further questions, comments, I will entertain a motion, Sue.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposal from Land Concepts for landscape architecture services for the master plan in the amount of $16,500.
Do I have a second, Rich?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you again very much. We
Thanks,
appreciate it.
guys.
Thank you, everyone. Next on our agenda, maybe Steve Brown can give a quick overview here regarding the 2021 summer camp rates.
Excuse
Thanks,
me,
Scott.
should we leave? I mean, we're done. If you need us anymore, I'm happy to stay, but I don't know anything about the camp rates.
Yeah, you're good to go.
All the consultants are free to leave. Thank you for your time
Good to
tonight.
go.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Scott. We, at this point, are moving ahead with planning summer camp for this coming summer, 2021. We're hopeful that we're going to be able to do it, unlike last year. So the Park and Rec Board discussed and recommends, and staff concurs with maintaining the rates for East Whiteland Township residents and for non-residents from the Great Valley School District as the same as in 2019. Those rates are for East Whiteland Township residents, $500 for the first child and $475 for each additional child. And then for non-residents who must be residents of the Great Valley School District, the rate is $575 for the first child and $550 for each additional child. So those are the rates that are being recommended to the board.
Same as last year, right? If we had it last year.
Yeah, same as last year if we had it last year, right?
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
No questions.
Yeah.
There's
We have-
one hand up.
Yeah, we have a question from a resident. Go ahead, Barbara Ann.
Hi, Barbara Anthav. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Parks and Rec. I just want to clarify because of the notation that's on the agenda. We did not specifically discuss fees for Parks and Rec. We talked about fees in general, saying that we were all in agreement that we didn't believe any fees for Parks and Rec should be raised, including these full-time rates. But I don't know that we specifically talked about summer camp rates, nor have we specifically spoken about our recommendations for going forth with summer camp during the pandemic. So I just wanted to state that for the record and clarify that. Thank you.
Well, I think this specific agenda item encompasses that aggregate of retaining fees as they were last year. So.
And I think the intent is for us to revisit summer camp later on in the spring when we know better if it's going to go or not, or in what form.
Yeah, and
We'll have to.
I want to point out that Barbara Ann and I have communicated via email regarding January's agenda. And I advised her that summer camp would be one of the items we'd be talking about.
That's agreed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I don't see any reason why not to continue on with the board resolution. Rich? would
Yeah,
you
I'll make a motion to approve the 2021 summer camp rates indicated in the agenda.
Sue, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully, it will be in session this year. Moving on to John Neal with some exciting information about anti-skid materials and crushed stone.
Right. We had our bid opening on January 5th, and we had 2 bids. We're recommending to go with Glasgow for our stone purchases for this year. And that is about it. It's not too exciting.
We've used them for many years, right?
Yes,
Being a local company, why not? Sure.
right on Route 29.
Okay.
Hopefully, they don't charge us for transportation since they're around the corner.
They have the option to pick up or to have delivered. So,
Okay. Sue, can I
I make a
entertain?
motion to accept the bid for anti-skid materials and stone from Glasgow.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to zoning. I guess Ted Locker needs to be dialed in to talk about potential sending our solicitor to zoning hearing board to support or oppose these 2 agenda items.
Okay, so first up is the application of Bank of America. They're looking to install a bank kiosk, an ATM kiosk, I guess, if you would, at 490 Lancaster Avenue, which is the front of the Fraser Shopping Center, right along the street. They're looking for a variance from section 233C and 231 and attachment 7 to allow that kiosk within the minimum setback from Lancaster Avenue, and a variance from 270 to allow the removal of 3 parking spaces, and also a variance from 200-10 to allow lighting of 6.3 foot candles around the bank kiosk. The property again is at 490 Lancaster Avenue, which is the Fraser Shopping Center, and it's in the frontage commercial zoning district. Staff has discussed this particular application, and I know there's some concerns about the removal of some of the large trees along the street frontage. I think it appears that maybe 3 of the trees are proposed to be eliminated there. I'm not sure what the board's feelings are on that particular aspect of it, but in general, it's a bank kiosk. We have asked the lighting consultant to review the lighting plans as well to make sure they are in compliance with township requirements, I guess, to the best that they can be.
Is this a drive up or is it a small building?
It's a small building walk up.
Okay.
Was there ever a second location looked at in their plans?
There was not.
Will they replace trees with 3 other trees? I mean, typically you don't see large trees in front of a retail shopping center anyway. And I forget what's there now from a landscaping standpoint.
Yeah, I guess they're not really saying in their application. These are large, I believe, honey locust trees that are probably 30, 40 foot tall along the front. And there's really not a lot of area in the shopping center other than a few parking islands. And they're always tough to plan in and get anything of real substance, I guess. So we'll have to see what we can maybe negotiate as part of that.
Is the canopy of those large trees high enough that it's over the building anyway and it doesn't obstruct the visibility or not?
I would think it was, but uh, I'm not sure the standards, and I'm sure there's some kind of standards for lighting and visibility as far as an ATM goes.
It seemed in part that the trees may be removed to install lighting. So there may be options that they could, install bollards instead of actual light poles. So it seems to me there is some flexibility in terms of what could be done to retain the trees. I guess the question for the board is, is that something that we want to make known to the zoning hearing board if there is a position on that?
Zach, is this anything that you can talk directly to the applicant pertaining to trying to work around the trees rather than it sending a solicitor to the zoning hearing board?
I think we can certainly do that. Zach and I can probably conference call with them.
That would be my preference. I'll ask Rich and Sue what their thoughts are at this point in time.
Yeah, same preference. I don't know that we need to send a solicitor, but to encourage them to preserve would be nice.
Sure. I don't think Joe needs to go to zoning on this.
I agree.
Discussion.
Right. Okay.
What
And-
happens if they don't agree to preserve the trees?
Well, I think that's pretty obvious.
What is it obvious?
Well,
No, it might not get their, might not get approval.
But that's not up to us.
no.
Well, it's up to you whether you send me to oppose it.
Right. It's up
Are
to
you
us whether we send
saying
Joe.
if they don't preserve the trees, you want me to oppose it or just let up to the zoning hearing?
Or at least a couple of the trees.
I can't picture where this is.
Yeah, I'd have to see a plan anyway. I have to drive by.
When are they going to zoning?
The 25th, it'll be. This is right to the right of the entrance between 480 and 490. There's two sides to the Fraser Shopping Center.
I don't
So-
know where, I 480, 490 doesn't mean anything to me.
Okay, that's
What's a building near it?
the post office is in that shopping center, the
Okay.
Seasons Pizza.
Okay,
Um,
that's what we're talking about.
Across
Okay.
the yacht dealership. If you'd like, I could bring up the plan or the street view if it helps at all, but it seems like the preference is to retain them. I guess the question is what format do we want to relay that to the zoning hearing board?
That section of the road has had such an impact by the GMH building. I certainly would like to see as much as we can to retain those three trees with their size. So I'm okay sending Joe to oppose this if you can't come up with some agreeable outcome with a one-on-one discussion with you and Ted.
Are those the three trees just to the right of that entrance? I'm looking at Google Maps now.
Yes,
Correct.
it is.
Yeah, the canopy is pretty high. I mean,
Stick a little building underneath it?
yeah, it looks like you'll be able to. Maybe one of the trees, if they remove, you could still see a building there. And I'm sure the Bank of America insignia will be lit and visible.
They could always limb the trees up too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they
Take them
could.
down.
You could easily raise that canopy at least 5 feet.
It does seem like there's some alternatives that maybe they just haven't looked into yet, whether it's keeping the trees and replacing the light bulbs with bollards to just create, it needs to be visible. There needs to be safe lighting on the surface. I'm sure the ATM itself will be visible, but Ted and I can definitely contact them and see what they're.
Go be persuasive, Zach. Go be persuasive.
Well,
I'll give it the old college try.
Yeah.
if you are directing me to oppose if they don't save the trees, then I would be contacting their attorney.
That works for me.
Well, what else are they asking for? Is it all, I mean, what I'm reading here doesn't say anything about trees.
It does not. That is not one of the zoning requirements.
So what they're going to zoning hearing board has nothing to do with the trees.
Correct.
So
Yeah,
can we
not direct.
separate those two issues? If they get zoning hearing board one way or the other, we can still address the tree issue separately. It's not part of what they're going to zoning hearing board for.
Well, how would you address the tree issue? If not at the zoning hearing board?
It's not land development, right, Joe?
It is
May
not.
not be, I haven't seen the plan.
So you just go to them and say, if you can't save the trees, we're going to oppose your zoning hearing board request for other relief, right?
Right.
Right.
That sounds pretty persuasive to me.
I think there is a nexus, though. There's a question of setback. They're asking to increase the permissible lighting somewhat, and part of that is the poles themselves that I think are the true conflict here. So I don't think it's completely unrelated, so to speak.
Zach, who's the attorney for the applicant?
I would have to confirm that. I believe it's a firm out of the center part of the state. Ted may have the application handy.
I do not.
We can relay that information,
Summary.
though, if it sounds like that's what the board's preference is.
Do we have to decide we're sending Joe tonight, or can we find out how your tree negotiations go?
Well, the hearing would be on the 25th of
So there
this
won't be
month.
another meeting, correct?
So there's no
There won't be
other
another meeting in the meantime.
So if the board's wish was to authorize sending them, if we can't work it out,
Yeah, I guess that's what we have to do.
I think that's what we have to do, yeah. In the
I
time.
gotta believe it'll get their attention.
I don't think it's going to be necessary. I think they're going to have no problem with complying with what you request.
I agree.
Can you get me the name of their attorney? The proper format would be for me to reach out to their attorney. And he may ask for the zoning hearing to be continued, which is what I would recommend, and come before your board to explain why he has to do or not do what's being proposed.
That's a good solution.
All right, that's fine.
I will get you the name, Joe.
Okay.
Sure, yeah, we'll provide you the full application.
So we have a question. Barbara Ann?
Barbara Ann Thav. Thanks, Donna. Barbara Ann Thav, I just wanted to reiterate the importance of keeping trees, especially on that section of Lancaster Avenue. We've made a lot of progress with the overlay district and things like that. And just thinking about more trees coming down on that road that needs more greenery is concerning. So whatever we have to do to follow the particular steps to ensure that trees get maintained, unless they're, invasive species damaging the road or something like that. Also, will they have to put a sidewalk there, given that they're building a building? Just out of curiosity. Thank you.
They would not be required to build a sidewalk since it's not a land development. It's, just to clarify slightly, it's not a building per se. It's not like a walk-in structure with a door. It's just sort of a walk-up ATM, sort of what you're familiar with seeing. Not a drive-through, not a walk-in, but a walk-up, if that helps to clarify.
Okay. Got it.
It's not an enclosed structure too.
Just for what it's worth, for security purposes, as a resident, I would never use that then if it's not secured because of the phishing devices that can go on these things. So thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Moving on to the second application, we have an application from IPX Liberty Boulevard Investors LLC. This is for a variance from section 269C3 to allow the construction of 86 new parking stalls with a two-way aisle width of 24 feet. The 24 feet is their proposal, 25 feet is required. The property is located at 11 and 45 Liberty Boulevard within the OBP Office Business Park zoning district.
Now, the applicant originally asked for an interpretation. And as the board well knows, any interpretation, we have a pretty much solid policy of opposing those applications. because an interpretation would not only apply to their case, it would apply to every situation in the township, because it sets a precedent, versus a variance, which is unique to the one given property and would not be a precedent for anyone else in the township. So I contacted the attorney for the applicant and explained what we generally do with interpretations. And she has chosen at our suggestion to withdraw the interpretation and just go with the variance. So my recommendation would be just let the zoning hearing board hear it unopposed at this point.
I think that's a good solution. Yeah,
Agreed.
good. All right, so we're not sending you, or we are, what was our decision on number 1?
If they can't save the trees to send me.
All right, good enough.
So do we need to make a motion or to allow you to talk to their attorney pertaining to the options
On number 1,
on number 1?
just to make a motion to oppose, have me oppose, and I obviously will withdraw if they can save the trees.
Okay. I think, Stu, you might have this one. So if you can make a motion on number 1 to
Make a
oppose.
motion to send Joe on zoning hearing board 2-2021 if they can't come to a conclusion on the trees.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So there was a comment through the email. I just wanted to just read it really quickly. It's from Larry and Kathleen Stauffer, and she's just asking us to please keep the trees.
That's what we're talking about.
Brian, yep.
Okay. And if I can get a motion pertaining to item number 2.
We don't need a motion if we're not sending.
Yeah, we don't need a motion.
That's right.
All right. So we are not challenging that in the long run. All right.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on, Zach will be leading us on planning and development.
Sure. So item 7A1 is for land development number 8 of 2020 for 514 Lap Road in the Great Valley Corporate Center. This is for an approximately 11,000 square foot light industrial and office building, surface parking, lighting, and stormwater management improvements. Following last month's meeting, staff from the solicitor's office prepared a resolution for approval with several general and site-specific conditions, project-specific conditions. And that is the resolution before you this evening. I believe the applicant's attorney is present if there are any questions that staff are not able to answer.
I have no questions. We've been over this a couple of months in a row now.
Agreed. I'm okay.
Ditto that. So Rich, if I can entertain a motion.
Okay, make a motion to approve land development 8-2020 for 514 Lap Road and the resolution as submitted.
Have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Sure.
The second item here is for land development 11-2020 for the new science pavilion at Immaculata University. This is for an approximately 15,000 square foot building that'll house new classroom, laboratory, and office space to replace existing facilities on campus. The project includes landscaping, sidewalk, lighting, and stormwater management improvements. And again, following last month's meeting, staff in the solicitor's office drafted a resolution, which is before you this evening. I believe both the applicant, Kerry Jones from Immaculata, and his engineer, Neil Kamens from Chester Valley, are present if there are any questions.
I think as in previous land development, you folks came before us and gave a pretty good presentation last month. Rich, Sue, any
No
specific
questions.
questions?
We've seen this a few times.
Right.
Fine with it. Looks like a nice project.
Yeah. Good luck, guys, on it. Looks good.
I'll make a motion to approve Land Development 11-2020 for a science pavilion at Immaculata.
Have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Welcome,
Gary.
Carrie.
Okay, moving on to number 3, we have Land Development 14-2020. This is for the Chicky and Pete's at the Grove Shopping and Commercial Center at 10 and 20 Liberty Boulevard. This is a restaurant, approximately 7,400 square foot restaurant, outdoor dining and patio space. There'll be some limited demolition as part of this project and some alterations to the existing surface parking, curbing, and sidewalk. I believe the applicant's engineer is on hand if there are any questions.
Once again, we saw this last week or last month in great detail.
Yep.
I don't believe there'll be any questions. Sue?
None.
Rich? We asked a lot
None.
of questions this month.
Yeah.
Don,
Same.
any public comments?
No, there is not.
Okay. Rich, you're up for a motion?
Yeah, make a motion to approve land development 14-2020 for Chicky and Pete's preliminary / final land development.
I have a second, Sue.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Hey,
approved.
hopefully you can get up this summer.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to B, it's just a consideration of an extension for subdivision 12-2020 for a remnant parcel subdivision associated with Knickerbocker lands. This is essentially there are remnant pieces of that larger tract that were, essentially orphaned from the main tract by the construction of 202, and they were never formally separated from the primary tract. So this is a subdivision application that would do that. The applicant is also sort of contemporaneously pursuing an administrative action with the Recorder of Deeds and the Board of Assessments to assign new parcels to these lands. I just wanted to give that background because essentially this subdivision is on hold, hoping that the administrative sort of process can, take the place of the subdivision. So they've offered an extension to the end of February just to allow more time, given some of the delays and some of the disruptions to service at the county level.
Well, if they haven't gotten an answer from the county, they can't very well move forward. So certainly they should have an extension.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's fine.
Fine. Any public comments, Sue or Donna?
No, there's not.
Okay, Sue, if we can have a motion.
I'll make a motion to extend the time to render a decision on SD 12-2020 for the remnant parcel subdivision on Knickerbocker through February 28th, 2021.
Rich, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes.
All right. Let's see. So moving on to C, this is a consideration of a final release of financial security for the following projects. This is the parking and circulation improvements that occurred at 925 Great Valley Parkway. That's the sort of the northwest corner of Route 29, Great Valley Parkway and Flat Road. They've completed those improvements and the as-built have been approved. So sort of administratively, they are complete. This requires a formal authorization by the board.
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Okay.
If they've done the work, they get their money back.
Yeah, that's right.
That's how it goes.
Rich, can I entertain your motion?
Sure. Make a motion to approve the final release of financial security for 9-25 Great Valley Parkway.
All in favor?
I'll second and
Sorry,
be in favor.
Second that, and
Aye.
all in favor, aye. Somewhere along the line, that's a yes.
Okay, for these final two, I'll turn it over to Joe McGrory if that's okay. Joe, if you'd like me to provide an overview, that's fine as well.
You can provide an overview.
I'm sorry, did you say I can?
Yes.
Okay. So this 7D is to approve a resolution to establish a hearing date for the zoning map and text amendment related to off-premises signs. Hearing will be held on February 1st, 2020 in the virtual format. This is for the zoning amendments that were discussed at the December Planning Commission meeting.
All this
Is that good?
resolution does is set up a hearing date.
Is that going to be a 7 o'clock meeting like usual?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And those, yeah,
First is a Monday, right?
that's correct.
Okay.
The second, so I guess it's, need to
You
consider
need,
the
you
resolution.
need an approval on that?
Yeah, any
Yes.
questions from anyone else? Everyone clear? All right, so Sue, if you can make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 14-2021 to establish a hearing date for zoning map and text amendment related to off-premises signs at February 1, 2021 at 7 p.m.
I have a second, Rich.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes.
Rich, is this hearing advertised yet? Or Zach, is this hearing advertised yet?
No, the advertising, we still have some time to advertise it, but we'll be initiating that later this week. I've been coordinating with Paul Mullen from your office, and we'll also be sending, actually, this is for the next one, there'll be neighbor notifications that are associated with that.
Okay.
Okay, so the 7E is to approve motion to advertise the hearing related to the settlement agreement, proposed settlement agreement between the township and East Whiteland Outdoor LLC. This hearing would also occur on February 1st, beginning at approximately 7 p.m. This is, again, just a motion to approve the advertising to set that hearing date.
Yeah. And the reason why we're having a hearing on the settlement agreement is because I want the public to have some input on the terms of the settlement agreement. I want them to have a forum that they can comment and say whatever they want about the proposed settlement agreement. So that when I walk into chambers to ask a judge to sign it, I can say it's been advertised, we've had a hearing, people had an opportunity to comment, and that should be persuasive for the judge to then sign the court order.
And this will again be on the planning commission this month, correct?
Yes, it doesn't have to be, and we don't have to have a hearing, but there's been such public interest in this project that I think it's appropriate to have a hearing and be on the planning commission meeting agenda.
Right, agreed.
Yeah, the planning commission is required to review the zoning amendments because there were some relatively minor changes to that, which sort of restarts that process. One other thing to add just to E there, which is related to the settlement agreement, we'll be sending neighbor notifications, property owner notifications to people who are granted party status as part of the conditional use proceedings on that.
We have a question. Tim Caban.
Yeah, I have a comment during public comment. I was just raising my head ahead of time. If you want me to make that now, I will. But if you want me to wait for public comment, I will.
If it relates to this item, go ahead. If not, if you can hold off one minute.
That's fine.
That's fine. Okay. Well, it's more than just a simple comment. So maybe you want me to wait for public comment. Or it's indifferent. I'll make it. So here's my question. Here's my comments regarding this. So I watched the planning commission meeting, and I was interested in a couple of comments that were made on that call. One was made by Thaddeus, who said he'd been talking with the township for 10 years about the trying to put a sign up in the township. And then an interesting comment was made by Mr. McGroy, because Thaddeus held up a map that showed what he said were 9 different, I think it was 9 sites. It was a lot of sites that he thought he could put a sign up. And Mr. McGroy said, actually, no, Thaddeus, we changed it. We changed the code. We changed it back. And I was interested in that wording, that it was changed back. So I looked up some things that I thought it would be good to bring to public attention. And I became aware, and I asked Zach, and he confirmed this, but became aware that the code was changed. And this is specifically with regard to 200, it's the off-premises sign 200-85A. And the number on that code currently, if you look at it, it says you can measure from 2,100 feet of the municipal boundary. And so I asked Zach what it was before. So what it appears to be is before any change, which is before John Nagel became manager, it's before Joe McGrory became solicitor, it said 2,100 feet, which is what it says today. And then with John Nagel as manager, Joe McGrory as solicitor, and both Rich and Sue as supervisors, together with Bill Holmes, on February 8th, 2017, the boundary was changed to 2,600. And so my question, I have a question here, and I don't know if the solicitor or somebody can answer it, because he said that the 3 signs are grandfathered under the code at the time at which the decision was made. So my question is, under the 2,100 foot definition, which is what it is as of March 11th, 2020, and which is what it was before February 2017, would the 3 signs that are being used as a bludgeon against the township and the citizens, saying you do this or else, or we're going to put up these 3 signs, would those 3 signs be allowed under the code that we have today?
I have not studied whether those 3 signs are permitted under the current code, but I think at least 2 of them are. But I'd have to study that. I'd have to measure it. And I want you to know that the ordinance was changed based on a study of the then zoning officer before Ted was hired. And that zoning officer had concluded that the ordinance change would result in no more than 2 signs being permitted on Route 30. And his study was wrong. That's why we changed it back to what it was before he did his study. Now, the settlement agreement would eliminate all 3 of these signs and totally remove the billboard zone off of Route 30. So there's different amendments we're talking about here.
Okay, but so according to your opinion, you say you'd have to study it. At least 2 of the 3 signs would be allowed under the 2,100 foot definition, which is what it is now, and which is what it was before February 2017.
That's what I'm guessing, but I got to study it. I got to check it out.
Yeah, I can confirm actually the two of the 3 applications which are further west, as in further from Paoli, closer to Exton, are outside of the 2,100 feet that the ordinance currently reads.
So, which means if they're outside of 2,100 feet, then they would or would not be permissible?
They would not be permitted under the current ordinance.
If it's outside of 2,100 feet?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. So thank you for that, Mr. McGrory. And I noticed that when I read the meeting minutes from February 28th, 2017, it says Mr. Lease, and I guess that Mr. Lease was the zoning officer at the time?
Yes.
Okay, it said Mr. Lease reviewed the impact of the prior ordinance amendment and concluded that measuring setback from the center line of the road, that there would be only 1 property. And the minutes go on to say Mr. McGrory felt better that changing the language to right of way of the road would permit 3 properties to erect billboards.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure there were at least two places that billboards could be erected. So it wouldn't be a spot zone. I think you're subject to challenge if there's only 1 place where billboards permitted. So we had to change it to make sure there were at least 2 places where it was permitted. Otherwise, a billboard company could come in, put them in where they wanted.
Okay, and thank you for that, because last time you were kind enough to exchange the difference between a de facto and a de jure challenge, and that's helpful to me because I didn't know about that stuff. But here, one other question then. So the recent change in March of 2020, if the 3 signs had not been grandfathered, would you have changed it? Why did you need to change it back? Or yeah, I guess that's my question.
Because Well, first, the real issue is that we're changing it now to get billboards totally off of Route 30. To no longer have the billboard zone be on Route 30.
Yeah, the intent of the previous ordinance, if I could just clarify a little bit, as Joe has said, we need to allow them somewhere in the township. The previous ordinance, inadvertently was changed, and I don't think it was for the better necessarily, but those limits at the either end of the township along Route 30 within 2,100 feet seemed to be reasonable areas at the time. It seemed to limit sort of the exposure too much, but still allow them in a reasonable area. So we couldn't be accused of having exclusionary zoning or anything to that effect. That was the intent of restoring the language.
Okay, so thank you for that. So, I don't think that we can do anything. I'm not under the illusion that we can get out of the 3 signs or get out of the situation that we're in. But the reason I'm asking these questions is to have an accurate understanding portrayed in public about what happened, because it really looks to me like a debacle. And at the last meeting, Mr. McGrory said, well, some past supervisors made the decision that they wanted to have signs on Route 30. And really, it's not that far in the past, because both Rich and Sue were supervisors who made that decision. So a couple other things I want to point out, which I mentioned on the planning meeting last time. And I understand that if you override the code with the settlement agreement, that you can just do whatever you want. And I think that's really problematic, albeit maybe necessary, because you're in a pickle now. But it's problematic in every case where you do zoning overlays and you just ignore the township code. So for example, one thing that is in our township code is 200-85D, which says lighting shall comply with Article 2 of this chapter and Section 280 of this article. And then it goes on to say, if adjacent to residential zoning districts, signs shall be lit only from dusk to 10 p.m. Now, there's 2 things about that. If adjacent to residential zoning districts, that code says if adjacent to residential zoning districts. At the planning meeting, the applicant, Mr. Borkowski, kept putting up a map and putting it and showing that he couldn't see any houses on the map. And he's referring to the hill, which is known as Little Round Top, on top of which is Mr. Lutz's house. And if you look at the township zoning map, that entire area is zoned R1, which is a residential zoning district. And I would bet that the reason why the code was written, if adjacent to zoning districts, it doesn't say if adjacent to a house. It doesn't say if you can see a house from a billboard. It says zoning districts, because that allows the zoning to be maintained and planned ahead of time when you're putting something next to a zoning district, because eventually in a residential zoning district, you're probably going to build some homes. And also with regard to that section, it says that light signs shall only be lit from dusk to 10 p.m. Now, I understand this is an electronic sign. And I made the point before that the arrogant attorney that Mr. Barkowski had repeatedly said that this sign is like any other sign. It doesn't need any special approval. But I would argue that if it effectively is a sign like any other sign, then it should follow. If you don't do the settlement agreement, it should follow letter D, which says it can only be lit from dusk to 10 p.m., which means that because it's like any other sign, it cannot be lit at any other time other than dusk to 10 p.m. And if that means that the electronic sign has to be shut off and that has a negative impact on Mr. Barkowski's return on investment calculations, then so be it, because he readily admits that his sign is like any other sign. And I would think that if he's going to gonna then argue that his sign is something different, that he would have to ask for some kind of a variance or something. So I really think that we need to follow the code in the township. And I also heard a comment during the plan commission that one of the plan commissioner members said he didn't think that people getting their attorneys and suing and going to court was the right way to go. And, you know, it makes me ask, when do we stand up for ourselves? When do we fight for something in this township? And what is worth going to court for? Is there anything worth going to court for at all? Or do we forever say, well, we don't want to spend the money on court, and so screw it, we're just going to roll over? So a couple of things. One thing I want to suggest also, because it appears to me that the draft settlement agreement is likely written by Mr. Barkowski's attorney, I would guess, maybe with some input from the township. But in the settlement agreement itself, in letter 8L, it says that his sign, which will be on 202, shall not use an active area background defined as the color of the communication copy behind the graphics, images, and logos occupying more than 50% of the sign face, consisting of bright white, off-white, or other pale colors, which would create excessive contrast or glare. So at least if you're going to roll over, and I understand that the situation now, you have to do it and get those signs off 30, and people might like that, and I agree with them, but put this stipulation from the settlement agreement into the code and do it post haste, forthwith, not a year from now saying, well, we didn't get to it yet. Because if you put that sign in, if you put that actual section into the code and enforced it, then that would address all of the nonsense on 30 with the bright white sign in front of Giant, with the bright white sign everywhere all around in the township. And I just never cease to be amazed at the ineptitude of our township, where we say, oh, well, we talked to the guy and we've asked him to turn it down, and I'm going to have another discussion with him, and I'm going to ask him. And if anyone drives past that, I don't care if I don't have a particular medical condition or anything like that. It's a disgrace. It blinds you. So at least could we please take that section out of the settlement agreement and put it into the code immediately?
So
and then one last thing.
Briefly, if you'd like.
What? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I can speak to that specific point if you'd like. So this language that you see in the settlement agreement is more or less mirror image of what's in the proposed zoning amendment. It's also consistent with agreements that we've been having new electronic sign applications, agreed to as part of their application. So this is, in some manner, sort of our solution to that type of issue moving forward. We've tried to incorporate this into various aspects of not only the code, but in also our permit applications. So I just want to let you know that this is the type of language that we're trying to use moving forward to limit those types of issues.
Great, thank you, Zach. And when that goes into the code, is it only for new signs, or can you apply that code to existing signs in the township?
It's difficult to apply retroactively, which is why, to your point, we've been contacting existing sign owners and trying to work with them to adjust the brightness. But yeah, essentially this would be for new signs moving forward, and the rest would have to be done sort of in the manner that we've referred to already.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Zach. I appreciate at least if you're going to sign a settlement agreement that overrides our code with a sign magnate, that you would at least put that into the code. And, I get the explanation of Mr. McGrory about why the code was changed, but I do also want to put into the record, and I'm not saying that anything like this happened in our township, but it was happening around the same time, where in April of 2016, in Lower Southampton Township, there was a scandal there with regard to an alleged bribe offered by a salesman from the outdoor sign company. And it ended up with the solicitor getting a sentence of 30 months of probation, $5,000 fine. And he even made a statement publicly that said he didn't do anything wrong. And his law firm made a public statement that said they didn't believe him. And if I read the things right, I believe he was disbarred. So I'm not saying that happened here, but when things happen like this and the timing of things, it certainly makes me wonder. And the last thing I'll say
Be careful what you say.
I said I don't think anything like this
that
happened.
is directed toward me. You're going to find yourself on the other end of a lawsuit.
I said, Mr. McGrory, that I don't think anything like
that you are alleging. So
I'm not alleging anything.
I caution you to not make such innuendo. I will not tolerate that.
Fair enough. The last thing I want to say is that my suggestion for voting in our community is that we add to the ballot a line item in addition to whoever's on the ballot that is the specific choice that says none of the above, so that people, if they do not want to vote for the only choice on the ballot, that they can vote for none of the above. And then when somebody wins with whatever 1,500 votes, but none of the above gets 1,600 votes, that would be at least publicly reported as a vote of no confidence. So thank you for the time, and that's the end of my comment.
We have a comment that came in actually through email, but Marty Lutz is now on, so he's going to make a couple comments.
Yeah, I want to caution people. This is not the meeting to talk about billboards. The meeting is February 1st. That's the date that we've set aside, a special meeting. The entire night is dedicated toward everything about billboards. So that's the time that's allocated for these kinds of comments. So I would ask people to respect that and try and withhold their comments till February 1st. At that time, we'll have all the representatives from Catalyst here to have available to answer questions. We'll be available to answer questions, and we've dedicated the entire night to that process. So I would just ask people to respect the timing of it and not delay tonight's meeting over an issue that's not going to be talked about till February.
I believe Marty's were about Knickerbocker.
Okay.
Marty, go ahead.
Yeah, I submitted an email earlier in regard to the Knickerbocker lands. That was a subject of a subdivision discussion. And I just had two questions. Are we talking about the piece of land at the intersection of the Chester Valley Trail and US 401?
That's correct.
And isn't that part of the shown on the comprehensive plan sensitive sites map? I just wanted to point that out because we're talking about a piece of land that we're subdividing from another piece of land, which is all part of the sensitive, shown on the sensitive sites map as a landfill. Also, is it not correct that the township had core samples taken at that location and found the samples to be consistent with a landfill operation? Again, I wanted to point those things out that I'm not sure they'll have an impact on the decision about a subdivision, but I think the township should keep in mind that we're talking about a sensitive site that was a prior landfill operation.
Marty, where were the core samples taken? Were taken as part of the regulated or unregulated landfill area?
Where and when? Okay, several questions there. As you may recall, a number of years ago, the township was considering putting the fire company at that location. And we all understand where the location is. The township went in and took core samples because that location was part of the overall landfill plot plan back from 1958. And as discussed earlier, it was cut off when 202 was constructed. So the township should have that information on hand. Does that answer your question, Joe?
Yes, it does, and I find that to be very helpful. We're going to have to track down those core samples.
Okay.
Because that developer is intending to offer that parcel to the township as a donation. We need to make sure that it's not a problem parcel.
Okay. As far as the timing, I don't recall the year right offhand, but it was back when Terry Woodman was the township manager, if that helps.
Well, if it was about the time when the site was being explored for a fire company, I think we can pin that down.
Okay, great.
I remember that happening, but yep.
I have a couple comments in regard to the prior discussion on the public hearing coming up on the matter of zoning map and amendment. Joe, I'll keep these brief. I don't want to get into detail at this point in time, but first I'd like to say to Tim Caban, thank you. I support your comments. I thought you brought up several good comments, particularly in regard to the lighting. But I'd like to point out that this is not a simple matter of a settlement agreement. There are three pieces here. They're all interrelated. They're mutually inclusive, not exclusive. The three pieces are the settlement agreement, the proposed new sign ordinance, and the rezoning of the 18-acre ecology park. These are all interrelated. Joe said earlier that we want to get billboards off or signs off of Route 30. That's all well and good. But what we're talking about now is taking prime open space location, the ecology park, which is in the area of residential and other open space, and rezoning that from open space parkland to professional office. And the applicant wants to immediately put up a billboard along the perimeter of that ecology park, which would be rezoned to professional office with 202. But that's not necessarily the first billboard. The ecology park has a boundary of some, not excluding on-off ramps, of some 3,000 feet with 202. And a sign would be allowed every 500 feet. So we're talking a possibility of 5 to 6 additional signs, and who knows what the future will bring. But we could have many more billboards constructed in that prime residential open space area. So the question was asked at the last Planning Commission meeting on December 15th, what would be the ramifications if the township did not approve the rezoning of the ecology park and the proposed new sign ordinance? And the applicant said, well, he'd proceed with his initial application, conditional use application, for 3 billboards in Route 30. I think that tells you what you need to know. These 3 pieces are interrelated. They're not separate and apart. There are 2 things that strike me that the township really has to seriously consider if it's going to proceed. One is the lighting. And Tim touched upon this, but under the current ordinance, it only allows billboards to be operated from dusk to 10 p.m. Keep in mind, why won't we retain that if you're going to approve the new sign ordinance, particularly considering that the adjacent areas to where that sign would be are residential? I think that'd be a real disservice to the community. But the other item that really strikes me, and again, I won't get into a lot of detail here, is that future signs would be approved by right, not by conditional use, as is the case now. In other words, down the road, some deal could be struck between the township who owns the rezoned land and an applicant. Oh, we're going to put another sign up. The residents will never have it see it or have a say in it. It'll just be done by right. And I think that's totally wrong. And again, in particular, considering the character, the nature of the area where these potential signs could be placed. It's residential and open space. I think it's those 2 items that strike me as appalling on the surface. Finally, I would just like to ask, at the December 15th Planning Commission meeting, residents of the township asked the applicant if he submit his PowerPoint presentation so it could be placed on the township website for public review. When I last checked the website, it said that the township is waiting for the applicant to do that. Zach, has that PowerPoint presentation been submitted to the township yet? It's 4 weeks now, and we still don't have it. I think it's a disservice to the residents not to have it.
Yeah, as we discussed, Marty, I have reached out to the applicant, to Catalyst, and they have not provided. They've resisted that to some extent so far. Tried to make the presentation as accessible as possible on the website by providing timestamps and waypoints within the video to help clarify where things were discussed and sort of acclimate people to point out where some of the visuals could be found, but we have not received those documents to date.
Well, let me just comment that the applicant made a commitment. He was asked, he agreed. And I think he should honor that. I think it's appalling that he can simply renege on this and get away with it. Is there something the township can do? That presentation was very descriptive in terms of what the sign would locate it, where it'd be located. There was no need to go wade through several hours of videotape to see that or try to understand that. Is there anything the township can do to get that information and make the applicant honor his commitment?
We have asked the applicant to honor his commitment, but there's nothing that we can do to force that. What they did do was they went through their presentation and outlined the exact minute and second that each slide appeared as part of their application. So it is on the internet. It's a little bit cumbersome to get than just looking at sheets of paper. But we have pushed him, we have inquired, we've done everything within our power to get it.
I appreciate that, but I still would suggest not to give up on that. We have several weeks. It would be more helpful if we could get that material, hard copy that the residents could review.
Yeah, I agree with you.
That's what I have for now. And again, thanks, Tim.
Joe, I have a question for you. It's been raised a number of times on, and just Marty also, other signs on the ecology park. Obviously, that land is owned by the township. No third party can come and submit an application to put a sign on that park. However, isn't there a way that the township now can protect even against future boards to prevent other signs by put on the ecology park? Like a township recording its own covenant on the park land and having enforcement of that covenant, not necessarily in the township's hands, but a third party like a conservation trust. That way, no future board could ever allow signs. Just something to think about.
We can do that. The way the ordinance is written now, and the portion of property that is being rezoned would only permit 2 signs, the one that's being proposed and one other. I purposely wanted to have 2 signs that could possibly be built so we can defend the ordinance. But knowing that since it's our property and it's never going to occur without the township giving its blessing, it's highly unlikely that there would be a second sign. But throughout the course of these proceedings, I had said, in order to prevent that second sign, we can do a covenant limiting this piece of property to just 1 sign.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want that covenant enforceable by someone other than the township, that would put more teeth into that covenant. And I can
Right, exactly. And wouldn't we have to have that? Because if we didn't have a third party able to enforce it, then a future board could just change the covenant.
Oh,
Right?
that's right.
What's that?
That's a future board could change the covenant.
Right, unless there was a credible third party with enforcement power.
Yeah, I would recommend adjoining landowners as having the ability to enforce.
That would do it.
If I may add, that's a great idea, Rich. I think it should be pursued. I'd just like to add a little history here. The 18 acres, which is going to be rezoned from open space to professional office, that land was given to the township back in the early 70s by Anthony Volpe with the expressed intent to be used by the township for parkland and open space. And getting to the point that we can't predict the future, the residents at the time assumed, great, we have a park and open space. There was a board of supervisors in the early 90s that tried to take that 18 acres and convert it into a regional leaf composting facility. The residents put a stop to that, but it took some effort. So this is not to infer anything with the existing board. I believe your intent. However, we don't know what the future will bring in terms of politics and future boards.
Sure.
So we got to take the triple approach here, belts, suspenders, and prophylactics, and just nail this thing down. Again, if we're proceeding with it.
Yeah, I can accommodate that. I can write a document enforceable by others that will have the property remain as open space.
Will we pursue that? I'm just speaking to the board now.
Yeah, we've been
Absolutely.
talking about that. We've talked about
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely should.
Yep.
It was never the intent to have more than one sign on that one location at the end anyway, so this is fine. Joe, would there be any problem with the utilizing of adjacent property owners based upon what is surrounding Ecology Park?
Who are the adjacent property owners?
Well, that's kind of my concern. You've got 202.
We could, I think staff could come up with a list of some of the property owners and maybe some ideas for other entities that could be, that the covenant could be written in favor of, if that's the proper term. I think there's
thinking
a couple different ways we could do it.
owners, because they have such a vested interest in seeing that it remain as open space. Some other entity may not choose to enforce it.
Yeah.
Well, unless it was something like a credible local land conservation trust. I mean, they take their covenants pretty seriously. But yeah, there's things to kick around.
Yeah, I don't know if a trust would be interested in policing this property.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, unless they got an annual check, typically
Right.
that's how they operate. I know. Yeah, that's a different issue.
In terms of property owners, I believe the residents directly north of the location of the sign across from 202, which would include myself and a number of the Oak Glen residents. And of course, the residents that are directly south from the location of the sign. I think that you might want to evaluate that.
Yeah, we could also do sort of a radius, everybody within a certain distance of the sign or something like that. I'm sure there's a couple different ways we could determine who should be listed in that covenant.
Isn't adjacent considered contiguous properties? And with 202,
I can make it enforceable by anyone who you think will really enforce it.
okay.
My norm would be to do adjacent property owners because they have such a vested interest. But if you want to extend that distance, we can extend that distance. You want to name some conservation group that's willing to do it, that's fine too. Whoever you think would actually really enforce it.
There really aren't very many that are adjacent as we usually think of adjacent. Because it's
Yeah, it's
between
true.
401 and 202, and then the township complex is on the other side of 401, and yeah, so there's not a lot of truly adjacent properties, but maybe you can come up with something.
Well, if you want, I can make it enforceable by every resident in the township if you want.
I'm unmuting myself because I want to state something here. This is
That'll do
Barbara
it.
Tav with Parks and Rec.
Sure.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was the one that brought this up during the Planning Commission meeting because to me, it is ultra important that there be some protections in place for eternity that protects that space as open space. And what I understood from that meeting was that not just Ecology Park, but another parcel needed to be rezoned. So that might cause some problems with having adjacent property owners. I don't know. But what about natural lands? I haven't heard anybody mention that. And we just paid them a lot of money to do the pros plan. So please give some serious consideration to that. And I think you're 100% right that it needs to be all residents. And not only is it just to prevent a second, third, fourth, or fifth sign, but it's also to prevent any development on that land now that it's been rezoned to professional office space or whatever it's called. So this is a very difficult topic for me. I'm still heartbroken by the decision that the Planning Commission made to move this forward. I want the public to know Parks and Rec was never notified about this. I found out about it by reading the agenda on the Agenda Center. So thank you very much. And in the not to break up this conversation, but I'd like to know the status of the township receiving the fee in lieu of from Atwater after the completion of the connector path from Atwater to Valley Creek Park. And I'd like to hear before the night's over what the plan is for the house in Valley Creek Park. Thank you very much.
If I may, can I just make one final comment? Excuse me, Barbara. So we can wrap up the discussion on the rezoning of the ecology park and the proposed new sign.
Please, Marty.
I would just like to seriously ask the supervisors if you give me a response. If between now and the public hearing, if you could give some serious consideration to the two major concerns that residents keep bringing up, if the proposed sign ordinance goes forward. One being the lighting, that the proposed new sign ordinance have lighting provisions that are consistent with the existing sign ordinance, that is dusk to 10 p.m. And second, that the approval of this proposed new sign billboard on 202 and the corresponding ordinance state that the approval be by conditional use and not by right. Again, that would be consistent with the existing ordinance. Does the board have a comment on that? Would you look at that seriously?
We can consider it. It's we'll have to look at it. You know, I don't know what conditional use. Conditional use takes more time, but at the end of the day, I don't know that conditional use has a large negative impact on an approval other than taking more time.
On the other hand, by right is, excuse the terminology, is just shoving it down the resident's throat. They have no say.
Right. Well,
just from even a perception standpoint, it would give the residents a sense of input into whatever decisions being made.
Okay.
And there was a readjustment and a renegotiation of the lighting issue, which will be seen in the latest settlement arrangement.
That's for Route 30. I'm speaking about US 202, Scott.
It's for
Marty,
202.
We're putting in the lease a catch-all about lighting, that the township, that if it's too bright, the township will have some say over getting it reduced. That's going to be in the lease.
Okay.
What about hours of operation?
I can't comment on the hours of operation because if I comment about the legality of that provision, I may jeopardize our ability to defend the conditional uses if they go forward.
Mhm.
So I'm not able to legally comment on that part of your question.
Possibly, we could address the lighting issue directly in the proposed new sign ordinance. Put a provision in there similar to what's in the current ordinance. That the lighting is only from dusk to 10 p.m. Be a
the way the
fair
current
provision.
ordinance- oh,
I can't comment on that concept because we have pending litigation right now, and that is going to be a direct issue on that pending litigation. So if I were to make a comment about that, I would jeopardize my ability to litigate those cases if we do not settle.
Okay. Just to clarify, those cases pertain to the conditional use applications for Route 30?
Yes.
Okay. I'm speaking to the proposed new sign ordinance as it applies to the sign on US 202.
I know what you're saying, and I can't comment about that provision.
All right.
I'm
Again, I
sorry.
just asked, excuse me, Joe. Again, I just asked the board to give some serious consideration to those two items in regard to the sign on US, proposed sign on US 202. Again, that being the approval process, it'd be by conditional use rather than by right. And two, that the lighting be restricted from dusk to 10 p.m. consistent with the current ordinance. Thank you.
Okay, if I could say something, I'm going to ask everybody not to unmute themselves because I'm trying to let everybody in to at a fair chance to say what you want to say. So I'm going to let Kathleen, are we on public comment? I'm a little confused.
Yeah,
No,
I think
we're
we're not
made
on
a
public
motion.
comment yet. We have a motion on the floor.
We're not
We
on
didn't do
public comment.
7E yet.
Okay, so Kathleen, does your comment have to do with what they're speaking of?
Yes, just because I agree with Mr. McGrory in the sense that I'm not near or adjacent to the property that you're speaking of, the ecology park, but I am a member of this township. And when I heard him say that all residents, I am invested in this township. So I would like to be part of the decision or my voice heard in what I want for this township. So I appreciate that. I would appreciate being part of that adjacent property. Thank you.
Do you want a motion on 7E, Scott?
If there's no more public comments, yes.
I'll make a motion to advertise the hearing related to the settlement agreement between the township and East Whiteland Outdoor LLC on February 1, 2021.
Do I have a second, Rich?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes.
Now we're public comment, right?
So
Yes.
now we're public comment. I'm going to read two comments that came in through the email first before I open it up. Well, of course, I just lost it. Give me 1 second, please. It's from Cindy and Brett Shawcross, and they just wanted to say that they agree with Tim Caban. And if the township can rezone to get out of a pickle regarding the zoning of these signs, then why can't the township change the zoning of Bishop Tube when the decision to change it from industrial to residential was based on false and incomplete information? The township can get out of Bishop Tube's pickle by changing its zoning back, correct? They also wanted to say, okay, that's the second one. Hold on, there was another one. Oh, this is Chelsea Jacobs. She wishes to suggest natural lands to keep Ecology Park and any other land that we may want to conserve. Please consider also consulting our local parks and rec to assist. And that is all I have right now in public comment. So I will unmute Deb Mobile. Go ahead. Hold on, Deb, you're not, can you unmute yourself? I asked you to unmute.
Okay, there we go. Oh, okay, super. Yes, I live at 42 Village Way. You have seen and heard me enough, so you know where I stand on the proposed Bishop Tube development. However, I would like to ensure that there is clarity concerning comments that were made by the Delaware Riverkeeper, Maya Van Rossum, at the December supervisors meeting. I want to make it very clear that when Ms. Van Rossum speaks, she speaks for us and with us. We engaged the Riverkeeper Network support at a time when we felt we were not getting any support from our local officials. When the Riverkeeper says we will pursue any necessary legal actions, she means we, your constituents and residents, will pursue any necessary legal actions. We have entered our names on court documents in an attempt to stop this egregious proposal. We have organized and made our voices heard. We have endured nuisance suits from an aggressive developer who wants to strip us of our First Amendment rights. And I think we've made it very clear what we expect from you as our township representatives. Please note that all of the comments that I made included the word we, and we will continue to fight until Bishop Tube is safely cleaned up and green. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, Ray Braun.
Hi, everybody. Just wanted to say, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
There you go. Just wanted to publicly say to Chief Yeager, thank you. I was here a month or so ago and complained about the speed on Plainbrook, and I cannot tell you how thankful. It was like the next day there was an officer sitting in the driveway, and things have slowed down tremendously. So you hear a lot of probably negative criticism, but wow, the officers and the chief hopped on this one and took care of it. So God bless you, and I can't thank you guys enough. Have a great night, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you, Ray.
Anyone else? Barbara Ann Thad.
Barbara Ann Thav, Broadleaf Trail. To reiterate Ray's comment, thank you, Chief, for getting up to Summit and or whoever it was that took care of that 25-mile-an-hour speed limit sign that was in the middle of the S curve in between the middle of the new speed bumps, because I noticed it's not there anymore. So it makes more sense since outside the speed humps and the curve, there are 15-mile-an-hour speed limit signs. So thank you. And in case you didn't hear me say previously, I'm just curious what the status is of the township receiving the final fee in lieu of from Atwater after all of the connection points into Valley Creek Trail. I don't believe that that had been finalized before the end of the year. If it has, I apologize. I forgot, but I just kind of wanted to have an update on that. And also, I'm just wondering if there's an update on anything going on with how the house and improvements in Valley Creek Park and how that might be being considered as part of the updates to the campus and whatnot. Thank you.
The Atwater fee was received back in, I think it was September, maybe it was October, but you're correct. After they completed the trail work, we worked with them to get the rest of the fee paid, and they did do so.
Thank you. Any update on the house in Valley Creek Park?
I don't think we're doing anything with that right now.
No update on
Focused
that.
on the campus.
Okay, Barbara Arnold, I think wanted to say something.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Barbara Arnold, 31 Fonsstock Road. Question just is the board definitely voting on the Bishop Tube development at the February meeting?
Yes, the board will be voting in February.
Okay. I realize the developer is tying your hands, but I must reiterate that it's outrageous for them to insist on a vote without first having the outcomes of the environmental studies and other litigation.
Excuse me, I need to step out, emergency.
Okay. It's a proven fact that the Bishop Tube site contains TCE, which is a chemical that's linked to several types of cancer. According to a 2020 NPR investigative report, the EPA found that TCA damages the human body at a level 500 times greater than previously thought. Approving construction on this highly contaminated site is contrary to Pennsylvania's Green Amendment, which entitles citizens to clean air, pure water, protected environments, and informed decision-making at all levels of government. Developing this site jeopardizes the health, safety, and welfare of our community. Earlier, Mr. Caban asked in his comments, when do we stand up for ourselves in this township? I'm asking, will the Board of Supervisors please stand up for the residents of East Whiteland and vote no on the Bishop Tube development plan next month? Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
It looks like I have one comment or questions or in the public mailbox. It's from Gail Keys. And she would like to, she says, Karen's dog care, as you know, for many years, the owner was supposed to have landscaped rear and side property, not to be used for any other purpose. Instead, it has become a junkyard. Many requests have been gone unheeded by township staff. Please do something about this please do something about this. This horrible use seems to be encouraged by neighbors. She's also says the lights on D'Ambrosio's car lot are extremely obstructive. They shine very bright into my bedroom windows. My understanding is that lighting is to be pointed downward, not lighting up in the sky. Please do something about this. She also lastly says, together we worked on Route 30 beautification project. One item we discussed is signage along Route 30 and more attractive signs, especially the desired not to have digital signs. These are beginning to spring up, and in two very public discussions have emphasized the residents' desire to not have these signs. Where does the township stand on revising the ordinances for better and more attractive signages on Route 30? Pretty soon it'll be too late.
Zach, go ahead. Finish.
I'm sorry, I was just going to read one last comment that came in. It's from Chelsea and Drew Jacobs. We're highly concerned and opposed to the erection of electric billboards. This should not have been negotiable with the catalyst.
On the Route 30 signage, Zach, is that one of the areas of the existing zoning ordinance that will be looked at and revised?
Yes, we've been going through the code in various aspects, various categories, some for some cleanup and some we've been working on, I would say like new categories, sort of focus areas, things that make sense to lump together as part of revisions. Signage has been an ongoing issue as has been discussed a number of times the last couple of months. That is one of the ordinances that we've been looking at, and we're hoping to get a better product moving forward this year.
Do we have any draft revisions yet? Revisions in draft?
I don't know that we've got a full-on draft. We've identified most of the issues, I think, but township staff are continuing to work with the solicitor's office on making some of those modifications. So this is one that I think is pretty clear as a priority at this point. So we'll try to move that forward as quickly as we can.
Okay, and I guess on the Gail Keys comments, the trash behind the K9, that's Ted Locker.
Well, let me
Or
jump
Steve.
in. Yeah, let me jump in and just pick up on what Zach said. We have looked at some neighboring communities who we believe have good sign ordinances. And so we have been kind of cherry picking through them and identifying parts of their ordinance that we think would be a good fit for East Whiteland. We're also looking, at keeping some of our regulations. And as there was a lot of discussion this evening about getting strict restrictions in place for lighting of signs along Route 30, we're looking at all those things. Gail's question about the Karen's Canine, that's something that actually, when I was zoning officer, I worked with the property owner, and believe it or not, it did get cleaned up in the area that she's speaking of. The landscaping did get planted. I've not been out there in quite some time. It's quite possible the property owner has just placed a lot of material and items back there, but that's something that will now fall on Ted's desk. And same with the lighting with the auto dealer nearby. I think Gail has told us she believes that they switched some or all of their lighting fixtures, and that's something, again, Ted will take a look at, and Zach and I will assist.
If they switch to LED, that's certainly brighter.
Yeah, we'll have to contact them, and again, we'll start with Ted. We'll go from there.
Okay.
Glad to take care of
Okay.
it.
All right. We can move on to the consent agenda then. I'll read the items, and any questions, Sue? Let
Go
me
right
know.
ahead. Read away.
All right. Approving of the meeting minutes from December 13th, 2020 and January 4th, 2021. Ratify payment of bills for December 2020 totaling $621,326.31. Approve the use of the Tracer Asset Management Software for code services, $3,600 annually and $7,500 one-time conversion. Ratify the BSTI proposal. That's the company that's reviewing Bishop Tube environmental report.
And Knickerbocker, both.
And Knickerbocker, okay, all right. And amend resolution 1-2021 to add appointment of Bonnie Moats as our human resource manager.
Yeah, we forgot her at the organizational meeting, so
Okay.
didn't want to forget Bonnie.
Oh, no.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
Okay, and I'll second, and all in favor.
All in favor? Aye.
Okay.
We still have a quorum with two of us.
Yes. Any other business? New business? No?
Can I
right,
have a quick exec session on legal?
Sure, okay.
You want
All right,
to stay on this site and have everyone else drop off?
All right. Thank everyone for attending and for your constructive comments. And have a good night.
Please.
So we're going to just stay on? Is that what you want?
Yeah, I'd ask.